comes in this lemonade, yellows, pinks, reds, a lot of different colors. Most of them are deciduous, that is, they'll lose their leaves in the winter. Quite honestly, in the winter, I don't worry about it so much myself, because you're not out there on the patio sipping coffee, watching a sunset in January. It's just too cold. So, okay, I want it to be beautiful while I'm out there enjoying that space. And the deciduous plants will usually be leafed out and looking good the time that you want to be out there enjoying that space. So it just depends. If it's a bedroom window, that's different. You want that to be evergreen all the time. I don't want them ever looking in. So it just depends on where you're doing. There is one that's semi-evergreen called Hall's honeysuckle. That's the yellow one. That's one that, as a kid, used to take out the stamens and suck on the nectar. That one's mostly will have foliage on it most years. But if we go real cold, we go single digits, real low single digits, 0 degrees, it'll defoliate. So it'll go deciduous on us. Comes back fresh, usually by March, it's taken off again. But it's good, strong, drought hardy, butterfly lovers, pollinators, all the things you want in the backyard. Right now there's black Monarch swallowtails, not Monarch swallowtails, black swallowtails. They're a summer type of, and they're yellow in the spring, they're black in the summer. It's got real blue kind of back tail feathers. It's just magnificent. Loves this plant. So, but deer and animals don't tend to eat it. It's just not as much of a problem. Yeah?
Shade or sun?
This, oh yeah, this is a sun lover.
Sun lover.
Yeah, sun lover. I would say at least 6 hours of sun. This is our local native. This one grows throughout the Bradshaws, throughout the mountain ridgelines. You'll see this growing wild. This is Virginia creeper. Just starting, just this week it started showing some red. In another week and a half, it'll be completely like fire engine red, the whole thing. It's magnificent. It kind of marks autumn. You know that fall is here when this goes into full color. This one and burning bush are the two that kind of mark the fall season. Deciduous, obviously, is turning color. Be bright red, then it'll drop its leaves. Self-clinging, it'll find a way to get up things. It's great ground cover. But if you plant it at the base of anything, it'll start to climb up. Once it gets up to size, you can completely ignore it because it's 100% native. It just takes care of itself. Animals don't eat it. Again, javelina, rabbits, pack rats, they don't tend to bother these guys because it's a local. They just know, ew, stay away from that. We know it's nasty. We don't want anything to do with it. So Virginia creeper, again, sun, shade, anywhere you want, that'll grow. So I've got a lot more vines, but let's just leave it. I guess we should do this. Does it have any blooms? Let's have sun blooms. Dang it. Okay, this is crossvine. So does it have a specific? Nope, just tangerine crossvine. Evergreen, full sun, like blistering hot, western exposure, block wall. It's gonna be really happy with that. It just loves the heat, the sun, evergreen, and puts on these huge, like hummingbird-loving flowers. Just a great little plant. Needs something to climb up, so you need a trellis, wire, something for it to climb up. Crossvine, full sun. That's all the vines I got. Let's go to shrubs, shall we? So then, that's what's on a fence line or something. Now if we step back, we get into big shrubs. Just put that anywhere as soon as, yeah, that's good. So shrubs are gonna be things that are, 5, 6, 7 head high or taller. The number one seller is a red-tipped photinia. It's a monster. It gets too big for most places. Most of the smaller yards, I would never introduce or spec in or design a red-tipped photinia because it'll just be it's like a curse. You'll be pruning on that thing for the rest of your life, at least 3-4 times a year to keep it back to where you want it to be. And so that's more work than I want to do. There's some better varieties that do the same thing with far less work and less water. I like selling them because I put my kids through college on red-tip photinia sales alone, and then they're high maintenance. You got to feed them all the time, and they get powdery mildew, especially this year. So there's some disease stuff that gets on them. There's some better choices. Some of them are, this one I use quite a bit. This is a Nandina, or in California they call them heavenly bamboo. Thick evergreen, It looks soft and delicious, like you can guarantee that deer are gonna eat this, javelina, antelope, but they don't. They got a milky type of sap that just kind of keeps the animals off of them. Yet it gets thick, just thick as can be. These grow like bamboos, so they grow straight up and they don't get that wide. So you'll space these probably about every 3 or 4 feet and just make this solid green, ferny, and an evergreen wall. So there's several varieties, but basically the more sun they get, the brighter the tops will be. So this will turn this burgundy or wine kind of colored. The whole top of it will be this kind of burgundy color. The regular domestica, red, the old-fashioned one, has a bright red to it. You have white flowers with little orange berries, red berries to them. But a great little plant if you want not too wide, but gets up about this tall. Great choice, great choice. And pretty. Nandina. Another one that's very popular in the summer, this is butterfly bush. So, and they truly do draw butterflies in. Now, butterfly bush is, again, it's kind of like the honeysuckle, sort of has this semi-deciduous, it's pretty thick. Most years it's got some leaves on it, or it's a very short window when it's naked, basically, without foliage. So it makes a pretty good screen with lots of color. So very few flowering shrubs will actually hold their foliage. Usually they need to rest during the winter to recharge, to get the energy to make that bloom, like lilacs, that kind of stuff. They need to go deciduous to be able to have that flower in spring. This guy, less so. So these come in different heights. So you got your regular dark night butterfly bush. They get huge. They're like the size of garden sheds. And then they got some that are smaller. This is a red. I think this is red. Is that right, Miss Molly? You have the red one, and it gets up, I think, about 5 feet tall, about this high. And so this one, 5 by 5. So whenever you're specking these, so vines, I would probably place every 6 to 8 feet. Usually you're thinking fence panels are about 8 feet long. Put them in the middle or on the posts, and one vine will grow up, cover that kind of space. Pretty short order. Shrubs, take whatever the width is, same, so it says it gets 5 by 4. Divide that width in half, and that'll be your spacing. So that way you'll get this overlapping pattern all the way up to the top of whatever that height is. So overlapping pattern. So if it's an Arizona cypress, it gets 20 by 12, divide that in half, plant every 6, 8 feet or so. Now you'll get this heavy overlapping pattern where you wouldn't dare, kids wouldn't want to cut across your property, much less visually check through while the kids are playing baseball in the backyard across the way. So that's kind of your mathematical, how many do I need? You can do that math for yourself real easy by the plant. Okay, butterfly bush. This guy you're seeing all around town. I wish I had one in plume. The second it gets a plume, it sells, but there's a grass that's about this tall. It has great big white plumes all throughout the neighborhoods. That's pampas grass. That's this guy. So it's a big boy. Again, it looks innocent. Don't put it right at the base of the house or right next to the driveway because you'll hate it. Put it out by the property line, out by the corners of the gates, that kind of stuff. Put it out there where it can grow and get up to size and you can enjoy it. Plus it's so big, if you're right on it, the plumes are up there. It's best viewed from a distance. That's why when you're driving by, it's so showy. This happens to be a dwarf variety, or called ivory feathers. So a regular pampas grass, which we have as well, it gets about 12 feet tall. So it'll easily go almost to the shade fabric up there. This one only gets 6 feet. It's still big, but it's half the size of its parents. So if I were to plant one, I would probably recommend going with a dwarf. Still has the same flower, just the grass is a little bit shorter. With this one, I find it's best to cut it back every winter. So I'll actually shave this. I'll take my head shears and I'll just shave it back, zoom, back to about knee high, about like that. So I have fresh, new grass coming up from the base every year. Otherwise, you get this, it'll have this straw color to it in the winter. You have these old plumes that kind of fall over in the snow. it's just better to clean it up, fertilize it in March, it comes back fresh. If you fertilize them regularly, you'll have these magnificent, huge plumes on them. If you don't, they'll become thin and wispy. And we'll show you at the end when we're talking how to force these things to grow fast. We'll share how to get more plumes out of this. But pampas grass, it's probably the only one I would use to screen with because it's the only one that's up like this. I'll cover that one in a second. We've got a lot of grasses that are shorter, more decorative. I plant those all the time. I don't want to introduce that one into my own yard. You notice I planted 2 or 3 of them out in the front parking lot because again, it's easy money. Just show it off. And people go, I want one of those. You go, here you go. Have at it. But for your friends, don't put it next to your driveway. Just keep it, plant it in the right place and you're good. Or shrubs. Probably the most popular down in Texas, the South. This is Privet, Texas Privet. Gets up this tall, this wide. Just a nice thick evergreen. We use it for hedges all the time. This is evergreen, so it looks like this as soon as it matures. Solid green, has some white flowers. They're kind of fragrant in the spring. Insignificant, you'll smell it before you see it. It's just a nice green shrub. You need green. Sometimes we have too much Arizona blue, and you need some green contrast to it. So this is a great green contrast, depending on where you're at. If you're in that chaparral zone, or pinyon pines and junipers, manzanitas growth, a lot of Arizona blue that I don't know how you describe that color blue, but there's an Arizona blue. This green kind of shines against that. It's a great one. Again, this gets 8 feet by about 6 feet. If I were planting this, I'd probably plant it every 3 or 4 feet down the line, and then you'll get this solid, like you can just hedge this thing, and it will just stay this solid green wall. Great choice. Also, it's got this waxy leaf to it, which makes it super efficient on the water. So it's not a high, if you're gonna kill this, it'll be from overwatering. That's how you're gonna kill it. So it's pretty, it likes to be, treat it like your trees. Water once a week, peak of summer, and it's super happy. Okay. This is a native. Both these are super tough. This one's actually a native. This is an Oregon Grape. If I were to rename it, I would call it Arizona Grape, but Portland kind of came up with it first. But you'll see this growing wild up in the forest areas. The upright variety isn't native, so it's a ground cover variety. It's one that's actually the native, or creeping Mahonia, creeping Oregon Grape. This one actually gets up about 5-6 foot high, but has the same exact foliage. Thick, evergreen, solid, grows about, I don't know, 4 or 5 feet tall by 3 or 4 feet wide. So just, you get this, kind of pokey. It has a holly-shaped leaf, that's the name Oregon Grape holly. It's not truly a holly, but it is truly, truly tough, just really tough. Again, once you get up to size, you can cut it off of all care. You never have to water it or do anything to it. Curse it maybe, take a blow dryer to it, kick dirt at it. It will still keep growing, but it doesn't need your help. So I like to put it on the irrigation at first, kind of just so it's growing fast. I want it up to size now. And once it gets up there, I'll kind of bend back the irrigation. I can stop caring for it as much. I might give it a haircut. That's about it. It does actually put a little Oregon Grape holly. It does put on a little tiny grape. Some folks will make jellies and jams out of it. I don't know how you ever harvest enough of them to do that with, but birds love it. Birds, they are very much attracted to this plant. They'll roost in it, and it's a food source. Oregon Grape holly, full sun or full shade, it doesn't care. It just wants to grow. So it's pretty easy. This guy is full sun. I would say at least 6 hours of sun. This is called Ketone Aster, or red clusterberry Ketone Aster. This is very fast growth. This is probably just in the last month, this kind of growth. So this will easily triple in size within the first year. Within the second year, it's going to be everything you want for privacy. Might need to be hedged. It's going to go 10 by 10 by 10. It gets big, but it's evergreen. They call it red clusterberry because there's white flowers that kind of come out in spring, and all those will turn into clusters of red berries, which is very, very pretty. It'll hold those berries from fall through winter. It's quite nice. Animals don't bother it. I've even had personal experience with elk. Deer, I'm sure antelope, none of those things bother this plant. So if you're in an area where you got a lot of wildlife next to the forest, go with this one, not red tip Botinia. They're the same size. They won't eat this one, they will eat the other one. So kind of something that works well. Anyway, can get a little bronzy color. Gets like a slight tinge of purple on it in the winter. It's quite pretty. Then it will green right back up starting March or so. When it starts to bloom, it greens right back up. But truly evergreen, holds its foliage year round. Let me not mess up my display. Red tip Botinia, you know what this is. I'm not going to talk about it. Every neighborhood's got one of those. That's another one I would never introduce in my own yard. It's just too much maintenance, too big, too aggressive, and it's too common. I'm talking to gardeners. You're at a garden center in a garden class. That's saying a lot about you. I mean, we could peg you. So you don't want Botinia. You want something like this. This is an East Coast thing. This is holly. So this one is called Blue Girl, Blue Boy together, called Magic Berry Holly. We put the male and female on the same plant. And so now it produces berries on its own. Usually you had to always plant in the old days a bunch of females of the really pretty ones. And you always kind of put one male, this scrawny looking bush over here to pollinate all the females so you get all the berries. Now we figured out how to put it all on one so you don't have any ugly ones. You just have all the pretty voluptuous ones. This guy will get up pretty high, 5, 6, 7 feet tall and thick. It's evergreen. The negative, so if you're from the Midwest or East Coast, this grows out in full sun. Not so much here. So this elevation with the dry sun tends to burn the foliage. So the tag says grows in full sun. Don't believe everything you read. So kind of check, walk your neighborhoods, see what you're seeing and where they're planted, how much sun they're getting. But in a shade area, under the canopy of some pine trees, it's gonna thrive. And again, animals don't eat this. It gets a white flower in spring, red berries in the fall. It's classic holiday. It just looks good. So there's a place for it. Again, thick waxy leaf, so it makes it pretty efficient. In the shade, with a thick waxy leaf, I would almost call it drought hardy. I can't define it like that because my xeriscape folks would be very offended, but it's pretty robust. It's pretty easy to grow. Another one that I use myself, so I've got it's not privacy I'm using this for, this is called Yew, Y-E-W. This is probably Hicks Yew, yeah, Hicks. This one gets a column, it's about this wide by, 10, 20 feet tall. So I've got a 2.5-story stucco wall. So we've got a 2-story house dug into the back of a hillside, classic mountain house. You drive into the front, you go down to the driveway, and then you live on the top floor, but the downstairs has a TV office, workout rooms, and you walk out the back door, you go down some more stairs because it's on a hill. And so my house, on some walls are really tall and ugly. I mean, stucco is pretty, but 2.5 stories of stucco, hideous. And so I put a piece of art in front of it. Well, that's pretty, that helped. But art is this big and the wall is like, oh my gosh, now what? I put 2 of these on either side and I use them as frames to highlight the art. They're now up to about 15 feet tall. And so they're not quite to the top of the eaves, but you don't see the wall anymore. You just see this beautiful wall of green. This is evergreen. And it takes that north-facing wall that it's hard to grow things, actually. This guy takes that. And it's in my backyard, which you'll see this on in a couple weeks. My backyard is all low maintenance. I worked with the native plants that were there. I'm kind of working in amongst that, and I want other native plants. I do not want to be a slave to the backyard, but we love to entertain. So it's got to be ready to go on stage at any given time without any care. Or just, I go in and touch it a couple times a year. That's all it takes. This guy is part of that whole drip system, that whole area. I hardly care for this because it's north facing. It's got these waxy kind of leaves to it, makes it very efficient. It'll take that once every 10 to 14 day watering. It's fine, does great. And so I think sometimes if you plant it right, they're less care than the book says they are. So this is you. North shade, don't put it in the sun. The tag says it'll grow in sun. Here, growing more in the shade, I would say 6 hours or less of sun would be ideal. It'll take morning sun, it'll take evening sun. Don't give it that midday, brutal sun. Okay. I'm gonna save this. That's one I'll share with you on how to make it feel more garden-esque. So there's some layering we can do, and I'll share that at the end. We don't have time. Good, we're doing good. So let's go upright evergreens, which are the things you normally think about. Big, tall, evergreen things. And that's mainly gonna be conifers. That's gonna be trees, basically. Let's start with the number one seller. Do I have an Arizona cypress right here? This is number one. Arizona cypress. Again, it's a native, grows wild. You'll see it down at Kirkland, some of the lower elevations. You're just growing wild, whole forests. But many of the junipers, you think they're junipers, they're Arizona cypress. The only way to really tell is the junipers put on a little berry. This guy puts on a little tiny pine cone, about an inch, smaller than a golf ball. So you can tell by the cones, but the foliage looks really similar. This looks innocent. It doesn't look like as much. That's a screening pine. You gotta be kidding me. Show me something else. This is 25 feet tall by 12 feet wide. Solid. It's the fastest growing of the evergreens. Maybe Cedar or Cedar's faster. That's just huge. That's 60 feet by 25 feet. The scale is so much bigger, it's ridiculous. This actually can go down property lines, fence lines, and we use this for wind breaks in Chino Valley, Paulden, just to cut that wind, that southwest wind that just irritates you. Because you can plant this, again, 12 foot wide. So I'd cut that in half. If you truly want to screen, I go about every, 6 to 10 feet, somewhere in there. Plant it about like this. Down the row, you'll get this thick overlapping pattern. So Arizona cypress, unfortunately, they want to be in the ground. They don't get thick until they get rooted. Once they get rooted, they start putting in the side growth. Otherwise, they just want to go to the sky. They just, in a bucket, they just want to grow straight up without getting full, no matter how much we try. So, but if you put it in the ground, but this time next spring, that's why you want to plant now, especially for privacy. Plant in the fall, because next spring you're going to get that growth, because it's rooted out. They'll root through the end of the year, then it will start taking off the new growth, and you get twice the plant, 3 times the plant by the time it gets done growing next spring. Arizona cypress. Questions on that one? Number one seller by far for privacy and windbreaks. We'll go this one, which looks a little different. Looks kind of like Arizona cypress. Go down a couple of these blue ones. Let's go these, actually blue. Arizona blue, this is Arizona blue right here. Let's just talk about all 3 of these at the same time, because they're all similar. And let's do this one too, because Arizona. This is our Arizona state tree. Down in the courthouse, they call it the Arizona state tree. Back at our founding, when we became state in 1914, I think Valentine's Day, 1914, they planted one of these on the courthouse. And now, 100 years later, it's ginormous. It's one of the tallest trees in the courthouse. Right in the front, you're looking at Bucky O'Neill on the left-hand side. That is an Atlas cedar. That's this guy. Again, looks innocent. This guy's going to go 50 feet by 25, pretty easy. Big, swooping branches coming down. There, it got too big for the property, so they've limbed it up so you can walk underneath it. Otherwise, that whole part of the courthouse would be nothing but Atlas cedar, so they've cut it back and trimmed it up. Many times they'll light this thing up for Christmas, and they have it dancing to music, all kinds of stuff. Good choice, fast growing. If you want something that looks sort of like a Christmas tree, it's really robust, Atlas cedar is a good way to go. Again, this is going to be 25-foot branches coming out, just huge branches coming out. So give it some space. It looks innocent. These guys you don't need as much. This is Madeira, Wichita Blue, and Moonglow. They're all real similar, but you're seeing differences in the texture, basically. They all grow up into that mid-teens by about 6-8 feet wide, and they're solid. We're talking, you can't get through them. They're solid, from me to you, dense juniper foliage, evergreen. Junipers aren't the fastest growing plants. they're methodical, and they live forever. That's what they have going for them. They just live for hundreds of years. They're going to outlive all of us and our grandkids. They're going to outlive us all because they're just slow, methodical plants. What they do is they put growth over the entire foliage mass. So they're not just growing up, they're growing out all the time. They get really thick pretty quick. So I've got, you'll see this in a couple of weeks. I use Spartan Junipers. Did I bring a Spartan up here? I use a green one. This is probably Italian. Yeah, it's a Spartan. I use this one. Again, same size, just green. But I'm in that chaparral zone up above Prescott Lakes, and there's a lot of blue, lots of manzanitas, lots of junipers, lots of, already have pinyon pines. That blue was already there. I needed some more green, so I introduced this one, Spartan Juniper. It's been about 5 years, and they're now up. I can't reach the top. They're easily way above that, and they're probably this wide, wider than that. So something like that. And I zigzagged them through my yard so that I didn't have to look at my neighbors going by. I love saying hi to neighbors. If I'm out in my PJs, reading the paper in the morning, watching the hummingbirds go through the fountains, I really don't want to talk to you. I just want to read my paper and enjoy my coffee and have my alone time. So we created this courtyard kind of privacy thing that yeah, I can see them when they finally get to the mailbox. And I'll say hi, but I've got some butterfly bush to screen that. So you won't be able to see me until you're to the driveway, but then you've already walked by, you're going, Ken's doing something, I'll leave him alone. So I use Spartan Junipers. So that's another little trick. We can use that with this, where we're planting these. So these all get about, let's call it 15 by 10 feet wide, 15 tall by 10 feet wide, all of these guys. Pick the color you like. Pick the ones we have the most of. If you need 20 of them, pick the one, doesn't matter. You can mix and match. I kind of like the look of all the same with some plantings in front. So we're into the design piece a little bit here. But what I like to do is I'll take a great big one. And if I've got an egregious site, let's say a neighbor's slider where they watch TV every night, and they just bought an 85-inch Sony TV, and you're tired of looking at their TV from your living room, you want to screen that? You just put a great big one right there, right in the middle. Just sit where it bothers you the most. Have your wife help you spot it. Have your landscaper gardener. Yeah, over this way a little bit more, right there. Put the big one right there. Now you've got some instantaneous screening. If you want your landscape dollars to spread out, though, you could plant smaller ones that will eventually fill in over for the rest of the line or for the rest of that, so you can blend it. Now, I mean, if you have an unlimited budget, I'll get you really big ones all the way over, but sometimes you just want instant relief. You've got some time to make sure it fills in later. That's an easy technique to make that happen. So for me, I just took 15 gallons of this, and I zippered them, went triangular shapes, because I didn't want it to look like a wall. I wanted it to feel natural. A very natural landscape. We're not a formal, formal is East Coast. The pom-poms, topiary spirals, straight lines, that's a formal landscape. That's very East Coast kind of stuff. Here we have more natural or informal landscapes. It looks wild, but there's some order to it. And so that, I think, feels more natural, and that's what we tried to accomplish in our backyard. Although we still have waterfalls, ponds, we still grow grapes and fruit trees, but it's informal in how it looks and feels. Well, that zigzag pattern or triangular shape really plays out because you get some depth all of a sudden. It doesn't feel like a wall, like plants marching across the yard. Now it feels like, oh, this could have happened by itself. Oh, it feels good. And you put some plantings in front of it, it looks real good. So for me, I've got 3 raised beds going to the front yard. Again, we're on a steep slope to the front patios. So I just took one up there, one down here, one up there, one down here, and I just zigzagged it through. Now it's a solid wall of green. You can't see through them. It's only been a few years, which is what I wanted. In front of that, by the road, because I don't want to talk to neighbors. I want it to look beautiful. So I put Russian sage in front of that. So it's just a solid wall of blue. But it's too much. So in front of that, I kind of zigzagged the Russian sage and autumn sage. There's a little bush about this tall that has red flowers all over it. So I just zigzag those in the opposite pattern of the green, and it just looks like this layered of beauty. Butterflies are every place. It's a true garden, but it's a private garden. And you can do that same thing. Again, if you want to see that, tune in, and we'll try to capture it. Doesn't capture quite as well on film, but we'll try the best that we can. So again, does that make sense, junipers? Again, these guys, a lot of folks don't like junipers. I have allergies. Oh my gosh, if you have allergies, it's too late. You're surrounded by juniper forests. Have you ever watched a big male juniper go up in spring, usually at the end of March? They explode. It looks like they're on fire. Literally, there's so much pollen going up. It is ridiculous. He's going to populate the entire mountainside, not just the tree next door. He's going for all of them. And the females don't have pollen. The females don't cause problems. It's the males. The males are, again, the problem with junipers. They're the ones that put the pollen on, not the females. Females put the berries on. So if you go to the forest and you see a juniper without berries, you're like, stupid boys. They're the ones who cause a problem. The females have the berries. So he's pollinating her to get the berries. That's how it works. These are very small, and we're breeding for the females, not the males, because they're prettier, they have the problems. So if you're putting females out there, you're not going to have juniper issues. If you do have juniper issues, this one little plant is going to make no difference in your world. You've already got issues. You need a home in Phoenix, like March through May, and then you're good to go. Come back up. Anyway, get off my soapbox. I love junipers because nothing eats them. They're so tough. They grow forever, low care. I mean, that's everything you want in a landscape. Just they get a bad name. So this guy that I have, so we'll just kind of group them all together. This is Vanderwolf Pine, things that look like Christmas trees. That's these guys. So this has a straight trunk, straight up to the moon, and then swooping branches coming out. Colorado spruce, Fat Albert spruce, Norway spruce, all the spruce, pine, firs, Cypress cedars, all the conifers. They're going to do really, really well here. Again, we're surrounded by juniper forest. So you know that and pine forest, junipers and pines are going to do really good. They're going to thrive here. And so this is one of those that's really good. This guy gets very tall, not that wide. So it goes up probably in the high teens, maybe 20 feet tall, and maybe 5 feet wide, 6 feet wide, something like that. So it grows like this. So you might need a few of them. The way I like to spec these in, but I'm trying to make it feel more garden-esque, so you can get too many of this. So, okay, I got too much of this texture. I want to soften it up, so I plant one of these kind of just in that zigzag pattern. Again, I might do this. So now all of a sudden, I'm making a garden. All of a sudden, it feels like a garden, and yet it's going to fill in. You can't see through it. I mean, within short order. It's very easy to throw some plants together. So for mine, I'm zigzagging some evergreens because I want that wall. I don't want to see anyone coming down the street. I don't want to hear your car. I don't care if it's electric or not. I don't want to hear it. So I don't want to hear the dump truck going by. I don't want to hear the trash truck. I want to see it. So I've screened that out on the front door because we've got this beautiful patio out there that's just, you just want to sit there. It's just a beautiful space. And so in the front of it, the part that we're seeing, so you're sitting on the big outdoor sofa out here. Here we dress up with, let's say, blue Grama grass. This is a native grass. I should get that up where y'all can see it. This is a fully mature Grama grass. This grows wild. This one's kind of neat in that the wild one grows straight up, that seed head. This one kind of goes horizontal, which is really cool. Almost looks like they're levitating above the grass. Very tough plant. Once you get it rooted, don't have to care for it. You might want to fertilize every once in a while to get this many seed heads on it. That's what makes it beautiful, and it will keep looking like this until middle of January, February. Eventually the snows come and kind of light on it, kind of starts to lay over. That's when I take the lawnmower and go, start over, fertilize it in March, comes back fresh. So you can count on it. It's just so easy to work with. For some reason, I'm thinking that's a pollinator too. Butterflies like it, the caterpillars like it. So anyway, I would dress up the front. So I'll stair step the green down to some pretty things that I just like, down to, I even buried some buckets in the ground. I've got places for flowers to go in front of that wall. So it looks like a private garden, feels intimate instead of just a big sterile wall. That's just layering from zigzag is what I can tell you, instead of straight walls, divide by half the width, and then layer in front with some prettier stuff that maybe isn't so green or blue or whatever that shape or color is. So it looks, so your eye is drawn to that color, that butterfly bush with yellow butterflies floating around. Who can miss that? It feels special when you do that. So, okay. Design ideas. Now let's show you how to make it grow fast. So when you're planting, make sure, what are you doing? 2 minutes, really good. We'll go with questions in just a minute. Let me get through how to make sure they grow fast, and then we'll go for questions. Oh, we got one other idea. So we had this, brought the maple in. So we went with this idea, the zigzag thing. There we go. Let's create this garden again real quick. Thing in front. Many times, you've got a really egregious neighbor. They're across the way and they've got too many mules. I don't know what it is. Flies are everywhere. You just want them gone. And it's a big property. And you have time. You can't put enough money. You can't buy big enough plants to fill that thing up right now. Often what I've done is I'll put fast growing things in the mix because you're out there enjoying it, not in January, you're out there now. I mean, May, June, first part of July is beautiful through Halloween. It's beautiful here. Now in November, it's starting to get chilly. I mean, you got to put a few layers on, take your heated blanket out with you to enjoy the outside. So, but before that, you want tea, sipping your coffee and hitting your flowers, communing with nature. That's what you want. So put things like this into the mix. This is the fastest growing red maple. So I'll purposely put some of these in because they grow 3 times as fast as even the fastest evergreen will dream of growing. It instantly gets up to size, and you can buy really big models. So you can spec a couple of those in and instantly make that view go away. You're forcing the eye to come closer. So you're bringing it in, so we don't want to travel over to those power lines or airplane flight path or whatever that thing is you're trying to soften up. You can plant some of these and it instantly makes it look more intimate. It is deciduous. It's going to lose its leaves. You can see it's already starting to show. Just this week, we started to see some red color. Within 2 weeks, this whole thing is going to be completely like fire engine red. It's a showstopper, but it'll put on 3, 4, 5 feet of growth a year. That's a game changer. This puts on maybe 18 inches if you really have green thumbs, and it's in the perfect space. So you can spot some of these in. I've even gone so far, this is extreme, but remember, I own a garden center, so plants, I'm a gardener, but I don't believe in, plants can be sacrificed. That's what, I'll just leave it with that. I've planted things, fast growers like cottonwood, sycamores, aspens. I purposely put them into the row. I plant my evergreens where I want them to be permanently. But in the interim, while the 4 or 5 years I'm waiting for those to fill in, I'll plant some cottonwoods. And I fully expect to cut them down in 5 or 6 years. I will sacrifice them in 5 years because I don't want them that close to the house. But for 5 years I can because they need the shade so these bigger spruce get up there. So you can, these are not puppy dogs we're planting in the ground. These are plants. I know I'm talking to gardeners, it's hard for you. That's a reason we invented chainsaws. We can get rid of this stuff. But you can blend the two together. Sometimes I sacrifice, not often, but sometimes I'll sacrifice, especially on the west side. I need some shade, or it's just so hot. I need instant relief now, but I'm waiting for the evergreens to get up there. So I've done that several times. Okay, that's why I brought this maple, just to show off, to get that idea of your design elements. Yeah. I don't think I'd put a maple out there because they're a little more expensive. They grow fast, and they are pretty. But I would take the cheaper, fast growing ones. The reason the cottonwood is cheaper because it grows faster. It's not at the farm so long, so you can get more tree for the money. So you kind of do the math yourself. Okay. When you're planting, let's do something easy I can lift. Let's take this U, because you can see it. 5-gallon bucket. When you're planting, it's super important. This is really for you new folks. You haven't dug a hole yet. Once you start breaking out the shovel, don't just bring a shovel. Bring a jackhammer, digging bar, pick. Make sure they're sharp and new. And by the time you get done, the digging bar might be bent like a banana. It's just pretty rough ground. So you're gonna wanna prep that soil some. For my yard, and you'll see this in a couple of weeks, I abandoned. I killed everything. I can't grow certain things. So the entire yard is nothing but raised beds. Layered down, looks like you're stepping down these huge, big planting beds throughout the yard. That's the only way I could grow successfully and have any kind of breadth or of plants. I own a garden center. I love plants. I'm gifted plants all the time, brand new introductions. Now, see if this will work in your yard, Ken. I'd love to do that. Let's try it. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, but you need some space to show that off with. And so when I'm planting, I'll make sure the soil is, the depth of the planting hole is only as deep as the bucket. That's as far as you need to go. Plants will not go down for you. There is that taproot is a myth. What they do is they go out. So the roots are instantly going to go sideways because that's where the food and the water is. There's just rock and caliche and more clay, junk down deep, but sideways. That's where the moisture comes from. And the plants know that. So dig your hole 3 times the width, kind of bowl-shaped, same depth. You got all your soil out here, screen it. Anything bigger than a golf ball, get rid of it. Old roots, any kind of debris, as old roots and things rot, they actually taint the soil. So get rid of those old, anything organic in there, get rid of that, except for worms, keep those. But those old roots and stuff, get rid of that stuff. Screen it so you have just nasty old clay dirt left. Now you want to add some compost or mulch to that. So you Midwest folks, you call mulch is like bark chips you throw on top. No, I'm talking composted material. You add that to that soil, about 25% mulch to your native soil. I've cheated and gone up to about 50-50. When I get a big rock or something, I just need some filler, I'll add some more. Once you go above 50-50, it starts to get too gooey. It's not good. So the plant's got to get used to that native soil. We're just trying to keep it from compressing right back down where the roots can't get through it. We're trying to encourage the worms to come in, and they feed off the organics, the mycorrhizal colonies that are so beneficial for plants. They attach themselves to the roots and extend the roots out. They need the organic matter to do that with. So you're attracting the good things, allowing the roots to get out. Okay, you take that blended material, backfill, and pack that thing around, water it in really good. When I'm all done, I'm gonna feed it with all-purpose food. I actually will take a handful of this, sprinkle around the edge, and every time you water, it rains or it snows, it's gonna release a little bit of food every time over like a 3-month period. Perfect for encouraging new growth. It's organic food, okay? And then I'll water it in at the very end with root and grow. It goes into transplant shock when you plant it. It is gonna freak out. This is its only home it's ever known. You just chuck it in the Arizona soil, you're freaking out just digging the hole. Imagine how the plant feels actually being planted there. I would feed it this every couple of weeks or so. You add it to the water is what you do. Mix the water can. I'll add it to the water every couple of weeks until I see it stabilize. You're seeing this tender new growth coming up. And, oh, I'm a gardener. Look, it's taken. You go and grow and thrive, then I never give it this again. That's when the food is taken off. This is a compost tea that we make. Kind of boil up some organic stuff and make this, looks like molasses, sort of, has an odor to it. Another insider secret, this is what I do. Before I put that plant in the ground, I sprinkle some Aqua Boost crystals in the very bottom of that hole. What Aqua Boost crystals are is something we make in-house. These are polymer crystals, so that they absorb water is what they do. And so they'll swell up and be like 200 times their size, just because it turns into a gelatin kind of thing. So as they increase in size and shrink, they keep the soil open. And they'll retain moisture right at the root ball, right there where they need it, so it encourages roots. And then we've infused these polymers with mycorrhizal colonies. So like 17 different mycorrhizals that grow here. So that's the things that, if you've ever come across, as you're digging in your yard, you'll see this white kind of, looks like white hairs growing through compost piles. Those are mycorrhizal colonies. Plants love those. Whenever I find those in my compost pile, I go and I sprinkle around the plants. I just gotta go grow over here for my plants. We just put those into the polymers. And so now you've got something that helps it grow, new root hairs, and it holds the moisture around it. So if you really want fast growth, sprinkle just a couple tablespoons. At the very bottom, I'll mix up my mulch, soil mix, plant that around that, fertilize it, water it in with Root and Go, and make it grow. If you're planting now, right on time, perfect. If you're planting now, I encourage planting now, especially if you need privacy. This is your season now till about Thanksgiving. This is your sweet spot. If you're planting now, make sure you water through the winter. Don't let your landscaper, gardener, turn off that irrigation in November, then you never water again for the next 3 months, because we have some serious dry spells in winter. And yet we don't get that permafrost. We don't get the frost line the Midwest does. Plants are still growing. They're still using moisture in winter. Not as much, but they aren't frozen. We're still nice in January. It's still, you put a light layer on, you go hiking out in the forest. It's beautiful. Your plants are still growing. So make sure you're watering things starting November through March, somewhere in there, at least twice per month. Water just infrequently. Pick a nice day. I want to be outside. Your irrigation's turned off. Take a hose. Just water by hand. We can still do that. So water regularly through October, first part of November, but sometime, whenever that irrigation gets turned off, start watering still. Turn it manually on by hand a couple times a month, or water by hand a couple times a month until you start turning that system back on. Usually the end of March, April, we're starting to see the cold is truly gone. It gets still snow, it's still frosty, but the harshness is gone. Your plants are starting to grow. By then you're seeing lilacs and forsythia bloom. The azaleas are starting to bloom. So with that, that's my presentation. I'll go with my first question right over here.
So are we talking sprinkle or are we talking douche?
Oh, no. So when you're talking watering, water thoroughly. Like it's June and it's 100 degrees out. Always water that way.
In the winter?
Always water that way whenever you water. The only thing you're really thinking about with watering is frequency. How often should I do that? Right now, I'm at about every 10 days because we've had some moisture. We've had some rain. So right now I've got my irrigation coming on. It runs for 2 hours always. And when it comes on in January, it'll water for 2 hours. Every time it always waters the same amount. You're never adjusting the length of time. You're only adjusting the frequency. How often should I do it? In June, when it's really, really hot, I got a whole class on this. I can't go down this path for you, but the rabbit hole, you open it up. Here we go. What you're really doing with, like in June, it's 100 degrees. You might be watering every 4 or 5 days because it's just hot until the rains come in July, and then you're throttling that thing back. You're not playing with the time, how long. You're playing with how often should it water. So it takes one mathematical equation out of the picture. You don't have to think about that. Just how often should I be watering? Okay. Yeah, great question. What else? Yeah.
They're probably especially, but are any of those berries or flowers poisonous for dogs?
So the question is, hollies, are any of the berries and things poisonous to dogs? Let's go down the most egregious, not holly. Let's go down, where's my U at? Do I have that? This one's deadly. This is right up there with hemlock. So yes, very deadly. What I legally have to tell you is you need to check with your veterinarian because your dog dies, it's not my fault. It's his fault or her fault. But there's resources for that. What I find is puppies are the ones that are the dumbest until they teeth. And it's not that they're eating it. Their mouth hurts. They just want to teeth on stuff. Once they're past teething, I don't worry about it. We raise dogs. We have a lot of dogs in our house. And we plant this in the yard because nothing else eats it. That's a reason they aren't eating it. But I try to keep the berries off of them. So kind of watch them when they're first in that puppy stage because they're dumb as mud in that puppy stage. Once they're older, they're waiting for dinner. They don't want to chew on this. Our berries, birds are really smart. You don't have to worry about them. It's cats and dogs, horses. Got to worry about those. So yeah,
How close do you have that to your house?
I've got it right next. So this plant. So how close is this to the house? I've got a little planting bed about this big, right next to the house. It is right on it. So it's the foundation is right here. I could dig a hole right here. It's right there. It's very close. It touches the house. But I wanted that look. I wanted to feel. I don't want to see that huge. No windows even. It's just sterile all the way up. I want it green. So that's what I did.
How fast does that grow?
How fast? So now this is a shade plant, so it's not for everyone, but if you got a nice spot for it, probably 18, 24 inches a year. So it's probably double in size next year. So it's not fast, it's not slow, it's just consistent. And it mainly grows up, not out. That's what I like about it. You can see this, it's growing this new limb, it's growing straight up. That's what it'll keep doing. So I do have a little bit of maintenance where it's at. I'll get a wild branch coming out every once in a while, like one big long branch. You're not growing there, clip. It's very easy to maintain. So it's for me. They also make a spreading variety. If you have got it gets about this tall, kind of makes more bush. I just use that one because I wanted a column, and it was a shade, heavy clay, next to a house. There's very few things that can grow there. Yeah.
Is the Nandina berries poisonous?
So Nandina, is it poisonous? Pretty much. If I said animals don't eat it, probably your alarm should go off. So if you got a puppy that loves to eat everything, I don't know if it does. I have a lot of these, and I have a lot of puppies. Schnauzers, though. Schnauzers they're pretty high energy, but they have small teeth. Actually, the bigger schnauzers have big teeth, and they're just as energetic. They don't seem to bother it. I had a German Shepherd once when he was teething. The Shepherds are huge. This was a 110-pound boy. Beautiful. We got him from a shelter when his ears were still flopping over, just abandoned out there in South Phoenix. So we'll take Max. Oh my gosh, Maxwell Rice. That was his name, Lane. When he got done teething, we had a beautiful garden. This whole thing I was just telling you about, beautiful garden-esque thing. We had grapes, fruit trees, and shade. It was privacy. We parked the boat underneath the overhang. By the time he got teething, nothing stood above this tall. Nothing. Roses. Nothing stood. All of it was chewed down. He was in such pain. I fertilized him and got him back. He wasn't eating them. He was just trying to get his teeth to feel better. He didn't actually eat any of it. He was just chewing his poor guy. Once he got done with that, it was fine. That's a big dog. Smaller dogs are more sensitive. Just kind of watch that one. Check with your vet. They've got resources. Or online there's a lot of stuff. Whether it's real or not, that's the question. So there's so much fake stuff out there. It's ridiculous what you see. I mean, it's obvious to gardeners, but that's where your veterinarian has more actual references, encyclopedias they can help you with. Okay. I should probably line up. I'll look at that. I'll see if I can bring a veterinarian in next year, talk about plants, what to look for. So, but then you get into horses and swine. There's all kinds of cattle. The reason that I can't sell Morning Glory here, the cattle ranchers outlawed Morning Glory. This is vine, very fast-growing vine. Has this purple flower about that big. I can't sell that to you. You have to go to California, bring it in, or Nevada or someplace. They can all sell it, but the rancher said, Morning Glory makes my cattle sick. They stop eating and they stop putting weight on. I can't take them to market as soon. Outlaw that thing. So they're in collusion with the ag department, and so we can't sell it, even though your backyard's not where cattle's going to be. It's just part of those games. 100-year-old law, how it works out sometimes. Other questions? I'm going to garden trivia all the time. Online, let's get your questions.
Leela asked a question that I know you addressed before we got through with our audio things. She says he talks about his garden, backyard, and front yard often, but I can't imagine. Does he have pictures?
Well, okay, so they missed it. Is that Nina? Is that who's talking? Leela, you got to tune in sooner.
She remember the audio issue.
Oh, audio issue. I apologize. So one more time, we'll wrap it up. So I'm doing a personal garden tour in 2 weeks, October 8th. Tune in. It'll be a virtual tour at 5 o'clock. So Friday, October 8th. I got the date right. Friday the 8th, right? At 5 o'clock. I think the lighting's going to be right. So we'll try to figure out. We'll go through all the tours. So yes, whether it will capture on film, I have no idea. Do you even say film anymore? I actually used the word Rolodex the other day when somebody gave me a card. Am I dating myself or what? Google contacts. That is my contacts. We'll have a personal tour. If you follow our garden column and stuff, many of the photos are from my personal gardens, but you're only looking at one little plant. You're not looking at the whole scale or why it was put together that way. I describe it to you. So here we'll actually show it off and why we did what we did. Maybe it'll be boring, but if you're a gardener, I think it'll be interesting. If you just want pretty pictures, it won't be as pretty because film just doesn't pick that up. But the design ideas, that I think it will help you a lot. So good questions, thank you.
One more?
Second one, yeah, sure.
Okay, Linda says, she's down in Wickenburg. Can you suggest a floral color for hers because it's still warmer down there than it is up here?
Yeah, well, down in Wickenburg, Linda, it's green is your thing. Green, green, green. You got all that kind of buff color. You kind of want more green. That's going to be your red tip photinias, privets. And then you've got a whole lot of stuff you can deal with, like choyas, sequoias. Boy, there's all kinds of prickly stuff we can't grow up here, but you can down there if you can afford them. I don't know if you can afford to put in 15-foot sequoias every 3 feet because they had $3,000 a pop, but maybe you can. I don't know, you Wickenburg folks, you got all that money down there. So that's one, check with your local nursery. When you're coming up here, visit us. So spruce are out for you, but Deodar cedars, very much in. Arizona cypress is going to thrive down there. So that one, I would say, this one right here, this is perfect for you. This grows wild down towards your area. Might need a little bit of water down in Wickenburg, depending on where you're at, but Arizona cypress, classic for you all. Mix that with, where's this one? Red tip photinia or Ketone Aster. These both grow down there. Boom, you got yourself a garden. So you got something tall, something shorter, it's big, so we can help you get that. Another one too that we can help you with, as you get into this, you're just not sure, you're gonna spend some money on this. Before you open up that wallet, pull the credit card out, take a picture. Let us see what that space is. What are you trying to screen? We can help you design that. What we can't tell is how long. I can't tell the dimensions. So if you can pace it off real quick, yeah, it's about 50 feet. I've got 15 feet here. I really want to screen out. Could you help me design that? Here's a picture. We can help you design that. We use the aisles all the time that's why I can throw together plants so quick. Let me just show you what I would do. Here we go. We design more gardens in the aisles here at the garden center. That's kind of what we do for a living. So we'd be glad to help Wickenburg as well. We love it when you all come up to God's country instead of going down to the heart of the beast, Phoenix. Why not come up here? So any last questions?
When should we start fertilizing?
So fertilizing, when should you start fertilizing now? So when you start to see the first fall color, which next week, but anytime now before Halloween, you're in the peak of it, fertilize everything in the yard with the all-purpose plant food.
Bushes, plants,
Everything in the yard.
cedars.
Everything in the yard. Everything. Close. Oops. Trying to make a point of, I would
And
use this in my backyard right after this. Everything in the yard, and it doesn't matter if there's a gap there, plenty of time. Your most important fertilizer of the year is in autumn. That the plants are going to use this food to form next spring's leaf and flower buds. And so you really need to fertilize now. And if you don't, especially your evergreens, I would say you'll get yellow on it. We call it winter chlorosis. They get this yellow hue to them in January and February. And if you fertilize them, they don't do that. So you can walk down your neighborhood in January, know who fertilized it, who didn't. You can just spot it.
Just fertilizing.
Not root and grow. No, this is for transplant shock. Don't use this. You need a meat potato kind of stuff. This is more of the milk kind of thing for them. This is just to get them started. That's something that's really stressed out. So what I am recommending, I'm writing a column on this right now. I think I brought Humic up. Let's do a real quick lesson. I do for things that are stressed. So we had this is an extreme environment plants went through this year. They really got freaked out. So they went from complete drought, no water for 2 years, to, oh my gosh, I can't believe how much water we had. They got too much. We actually saw a lot of plants die because they were used to no water. They had adapted that, and then we just flooded them with water, and they freaked out. They got stressed. They got brown tips. They started to get yellow, leaves dropped. all kinds of issues. If you saw any kind of issue with your plants, give them the Humic as well. This is humic acid. What humic acid does, it fertilizes the soil. It fertilizes, it attracts the worms and mycorrhizal colony. It feeds the soil, so it becomes alive. It doesn't actually react with the plant. It reacts with the soil. So the plant goes, oh my gosh, the soil's really happy here. It must be okay. Let's send off new roots. This encourages roots. What you really want though for most plants is the all-purpose. This is what actually makes the plants grow. If you've got new plants or if you've got screening plants you want to really grow, I would fertilize this 4 times a year until it got up to size, until it got big enough. I'd go fall. So if you're thinking holidays, go Halloween. It's your most important. New Year's, I'd fertilize it again because they keep them growing. Then spring is going to be Easter. I know Easter floats a little bit. If you're just thinking holidays, just fertilizing the Easter is a good time. And then 4th of July, Independence Day, because you fertilize then, usually the rains come right about when the 4th of July hits. You get some food on there, you get a whole other set of flowers on your roses, all new leaves on your aspens and maples. You get a whole other set of growth on your junipers just by fertilizing right the monsoon rains. So great questions. So time to fertilize now.
Did you put mulch on the top to keep them over the winter?
You know, I think your question allotment's been, you're at your limits.
Yeah,
I am starting to spread some mulch around certain gardens, especially my raised beds where I've got a lot of flower, things that are heavy feeders or that are not as drought hardy. I'll put a 2-inch layer of mulch, like through the rose beds, that kind of stuff. I'm doing that mainly to retain moisture. I haven't quite done it yet. I'll usually do it after I'm done fertilizing, usually in Halloween through Thanksgiving sometime. I'll put a 2-inch layer of either shredded cedar bark or mulch, composted material. What I'm doing that for is to retain moisture, because again, I'm turning off the irrigation at that point, or I'm watering far less frequently. But I'm mainly doing that to keep my soil from heaving. So as the soil freezes and thaws, this is more of a January lesson. This is kind of what I teach with the winter classes. I'll say mulch your gardens to keep the soil from freezing and thawing. And as it freezes and thaws, you'll see it crack, float, kind of rocks will come up out of the ground. What it does too is it also destroys the root hairs that are just underneath the ground. So as it freezes and thaws, I'm putting some mulch there to keep the plants from being damaged. That'll be in next week's class. I think it's next week, the top 10 fall things you need to do this fall.
Absolutely.
We're going over next week's class. So you have to come back before I answer any more of those questions. No, those are, you're right on track. You're right. That's why the class next week is, what's a checklist? These are things I do. Here's what you should maybe look at too and why. So we'll cover that. With that, I'll hang out. If I didn't get your questions, I'll just be here, but we're an hour and 17 minutes in. So longer than I want you all to sit. Come up and look at the plants. But before I let you go, I'll let you clap for yourselves, because I like to be clapped for too. Thank you very much for coming in. And we're here for you as you need it. Watch the fertilizer. We don't want anyone to trip over that.